Gentleman from the great state of New York.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Mayorkas, the crisis at the southwest border not only impacts border states such as Texas and Arizona, but now every state is truly a border state. State and local leaders from sanctuary cities such as New York and Chicago are starting to feel the strain effects of the border crisis. Over the last months, we've seen dozens of arrests at the Roosevelt Hotel, which is housing migrants, including crimes against children, assaults, traumatic beatings using no parking signs, and assaults against my fellow members of the NYPD. There was a migrant that came into New York City that in his first 45 days in New York was arrested 6 times on 14 different charges. But there was no charges because the great district attorney, one that my colleague from New York, Mr. Goldman, has supported, the district attorney, Alvin Bragg, declined prosecution. Governor Hochul has said there's no room left at the inn. There is, and I've spoken as recently as 25 minutes ago to commissioners of police on Long Island who said there is zero communication from Homeland Security about the individuals that are coming in to our communities. Less than 2 years into his tenure, Mayor Adams has faced challenges finding housing and feeding millions of migrants that have come from the border. Mayor Adams at one point during a public speech said, and I quote, "The influx of migrants along the southwest border will destroy New York City," end quote. Illinois Governor, another Democrat, recently sent a letter to President Biden calling the influx, quote, "untenable." New York City is facing a potential 15% cut across the board to city agencies over the next 9 months. Why? To deal with migrants because of your failed policies. So my question, and these are yes or no time to answer differently. Do you agree with Mayor Adams when he said that the influx of migrants along the southwest border will destroy New York City, yes or no?
Congressman,
yes or no, sir?
Congressman, I'm going to answer your question. That we do not underestimate the challenge of the southern border.
Mr. Secretary, with all due respect, it's a yes or no question.
I've answered that question, and let me also add.
Okay, do you agree with the Illinois governor who sent a letter to President Biden calling the influx unattainable? Yes or no?
Congressman, we work very closely with the cities to address.
Mr. Secretary, with all due respect, it's a yes or no question. Yes or not?
I'm going to answer your question.
Okay. Does it concern you that Mayor Adams' office asked a judge to stop a decades-old right-to-shelter mandate which requires New York to give place to sleep anyone who needs one? Yes or no?
Congressman, I can't speak to
Okay. Does it concern you that the surge of illegal aliens crossing the southwest border has overwhelmed our big cities like New York with approximately 60,000 occupying beds in traditional city shelters and in over 20 emergency sites? Yes or no?
Congressman, I am incredibly proud of the men and women of the Department.
Does it concern you that Mayor Adams stated, and I quote, "We, the city of New York, are getting no support on this national crisis," end quote? Yes or no?
Congressman, we are very proud of the work.
Does it concern you that as of August 2023, New York City was paying almost $10 million per day to provide services for illegal aliens? Yes or no?
Do I have a chance to answer your question?
Sure. If the answer is yes or no, you have had the opportunity to answer every one of my questions. But you refuse to answer the questions whether they're yes or no. These are not trick questions. They're not trick questions. The answers should unequivocally be yes. Every state is a border state. Every city is a border city, especially when it comes to bearing the cost of you and President Biden's failed policies at the border. I agree with my colleagues. You should be impeached. And that is why we are doing the work that this committee is doing, because you have failed your oath. And as someone who has taken oaths, probably the one most important besides being a member of Congress as a New York City police detective, I live that oath every single day. And to answer the question that you were asked, do you wake up every morning? You clearly don't. Because from every moment, from the time that you wake up to the time that you go to sleep, your focus should be securing this border. And there has never, ever been such a disaster at our southern border as it is now, and that is because of your failed leadership. It's a dereliction of your duty, and quite frankly, the questions that I answered should have been unequivocally yes. But you sat there and you decided to answer it in another fashion. And that speaks volumes. And that is why this committee will continue working to put the facts together to make sure that we find a new Secretary of Homeland Security, one that holds this country and this nation as most important. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields. I now recognize Mr. Goldman, the gentleman from New York.